The ship moved through space like a silver needle through black cloth. Commander Zilthkar stood on the bridge, his green scales catching the light from the stars. His crew worked around him, checking instruments and watching screens. The Galactic Council had sent them to explore the edge of the galaxy, looking for new worlds. "Commander," called out Klixth, the insect-like science officer. Her voice made clicking sounds when she spoke. "I am reading something strange ahead, energy patterns that do not match any known species." Zilthkar walked to her station. His clawed feet made soft tapping sounds on the metal floor. "Show me," he said. The main screen lit up with numbers and colored lines. In the center was a small, yellow star with several planets around it. The third planet glowed with a soft blue light. "There are structures on the surface," Klixth explained, "and energy readings that suggest technology, but the patterns are very old and simple." "Any signals?" asked Zilthkar. "None directed at space, but there is local communication, radio waves, very basic." Zilthkar thought for a moment. In his 50 years of exploration, he had found many new species. Most were either very primitive or very advanced. This seemed different. "Set course for the third planet," he ordered. "Prepare the contact team." The ship changed direction smoothly. Behind them, the galaxy spread out like scattered diamonds. Ahead lay the unknown. As they got closer, the planet became clearer. It had blue oceans and brown continents. White clouds moved across the surface. It looked peaceful and warm. "I am detecting cities," said Klixth. "Small ones, and farms. The population appears to be around 2 million. "What species?" asked Zilthkar. Klixth was quiet for a moment. "This is strange, Commander. The biological readings match human patterns." Zilthkar felt his scales tighten with surprise. Humans were known throughout the galaxy, but they lived far away in the inner systems. What were they doing out here, so far from home? "Are you sure?" he asked. "The readings are clear. These are humans. But according to our maps, no human ships have ever come this far." The ship entered orbit around the planet. Through the windows, they could see the surface clearly now. There were indeed small cities, and roads connecting them. Fields of green plants covered large areas. It looked like a peaceful farming world. "Commander," said Vexhorn, the communications officer. His blue skin glowed softly as he worked. "I am receiving a signal. It appears to be directed at us." "Put it on screen," ordered Zilthkar. The image changed to show a human face. It was a man with dark hair and kind eyes. He looked middle-aged and wore simple clothes. "Greetings, travelers," the man said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Hyunwoo Park. I am the governor of the colony of New Busan. We welcome you to our world." Zilthkar stepped forward. "I am Commander Zilthkar of the Galactic Council exploration ship Harmony's Edge. We did not expect to find humans in this system." Hyunwoo smiled. "We have been here for a long time. Please come down and visit us. We would be honored to meet representatives of the Galactic Council." "How do you know of the Galactic Council?" asked Zilthkar. "We have our ways of learning about the galaxy," Hyunwoo replied. "Even out here we try to stay informed." Zilthkar thought this was strange, but he agreed to land. The humans seemed friendly enough. The landing site was a flat field outside, one of the small cities. As the ship settled down, Zilthkar could see humans gathering to watch. They looked curious but not afraid. "Prepare the cultural contact team," Zilthkar ordered. "Full diplomatic protocols." Soon, a group of aliens walked down the ship's ramp. Besides Zilthkar and Klixth, there was Resonant Brightsong, whose crystal body made musical sounds, and Nether Softwind, who floated like colored smoke. The humans waiting for them looked very normal. They wore simple clothes and had the typical human appearance. But Zilthkar noticed they all looked very healthy and calm. Governor Hyunwoo stepped forward with several other humans. "Welcome to New Busan," he said. "This is So-min Lee, our chief engineer, and Dongjin Kim, who handles security." The humans shook hands with the aliens in the human custom. Their grips were firm and warm. "Your planet is beautiful," said Zilthkar. "How long have humans been here?" "Our ancestors arrived about 300 years ago," replied Hyunwoo. "They were colonists looking for a new home." 300 years? Klixth clicked in surprise. "But human records show no colony ships coming this far out." So Min Lee, the engineer, smiled. Our ancestors were very independent. They did not always follow official routes. As they walked toward the city, Zilthkar observed everything carefully. The buildings were simple but well built. The roads were clean and in good repair. Gardens and small farms were everywhere. Children played in the streets and waved at the strange visitors. Your technology level seems quite basic, noted Clix. How do you power your cities? We use what the planet provides, said Dongjin Kim. Solar energy, wind, water. Simple but effective. They reached the city center where a crowd had gathered. The humans all looked happy and excited to see the aliens. They asked polite questions and offered food and drinks. You have a very peaceful society, observed Zilthkar. We work hard to keep it that way, said Hyunwoo. We have learned that cooperation is better than conflict. A young man approached them. He had a thoughtful look and carried old books. This is Young Ho Choi, said Hyunwoo. He is our historian. Young Ho bowed politely. Welcome, honored visitors. I hope you will stay long enough to learn about our culture. We would be pleased to, said Zilthkar. Your colony is very interesting. It is not often we find such a successful settlement in such a remote location. Young Ho looked serious for a moment. Success came at a price. Our ancestors had to leave behind many things to build this place. What sort of things? Asked Clixith. Young Ho hesitated. Perhaps that is a story for later, when we know each other better. As the day went on, the aliens toured the city and met more colonists. Everyone was friendly and welcoming. The children were especially curious about the different alien species. They asked many questions and listened carefully to the answers. That evening, the aliens were invited to a feast in the main hall. The food was simple but delicious. The humans sang songs and told stories about their history. But Zilthkar noticed something odd. When the humans spoke about their past, they were careful with their words. They talked about leaving Earth and finding this world, but they never explained exactly why their ancestors had left, or how they had traveled so far without advanced ships. Commander, whispered Clixith during the meal. I have been scanning the colony with our passive sensors. There are some unusual energy readings. Their technology may be more advanced than it appears. Zilthkar nodded quietly. He had the same feeling. These humans seemed too knowledgeable and too prepared for contact with aliens. Most isolated colonies were suspicious and frightened when first contacted. These people acted like they had been expecting visitors. After the feast, Governor Hyunwoo walked with the aliens back to their ship. Will you stay longer? He asked. We have much we could show you. We would like that, said Zilthkar. Your people have been very kind. Good, smiled Hyunwoo. Tomorrow Somin can show you our engineering systems, and Young Ho can tell you more about our history. As they reached the ship, Zilthkar turned to look back at the city. Lights glowed warmly in the windows. It looked like the perfect peaceful colony. But something felt wrong. The humans knew too much. They were too calm, and Young Ho's words about leaving things behind worried him. What had the ancestors of New Busan been running from? And why had they come so far to hide? Inside the ship, Clixith prepared her report for the Galactic Council. Primitive human colony discovered in remote system, she wrote. Population stable and peaceful, no apparent threat to galactic security. But as she wrote those words, she wondered if they were true. Her instruments had detected energy patterns that did not match the simple technology the humans claimed to use. Something was hidden here. Outside, the stars shone down on the quiet colony. In the distance, night birds called to each other. It seemed like the most peaceful place in the galaxy. But peace, Zilthkar had learned in his long career, was sometimes the most dangerous thing of all. The morning sun was bright over New Busan as the alien visitors began their second day on the planet. Commander Zilthkar had spent the night thinking about the strange feelings he had about this place. Everything seemed perfect, maybe too perfect. Commander, said Clixith as they prepared to leave the ship. I ran detailed scans during the night. The numbers do not add up. What do you mean? Asked Zilthkar. The colony has over 2 million people, but the farmland should only support about half that number. Yet everyone appears well fed and healthy. Zilthkar frowned. Perhaps they have better farming methods than we understand. Perhaps, said Clixith, but she did not sound convinced. They met Governor Hyunwoo at the landing site. With him was a woman with a kind face and intelligent eyes. This is Mi Young Song, said Hyunwoo. She runs our education system. She wanted to show you how we teach our children. Mi Young bowed politely. I hope you will find our methods interesting. Our children are very eager to meet you. They walked to a large building near the center of town. It was clearly a school, with playgrounds and gardens around it. But as they got closer, Zilthakar noticed something unusual. The playground equipment was built with very precise angles and measurements. It looked more like scientific instruments than toys. Inside the school, children of different ages sat in circles, working on problems. But these were not simple addition or reading exercises. Today, we are studying stellar dynamics, Mi Young explained to a group of 10-year-olds. Can anyone explain how a star maintains its position in a galaxy? A young girl raised her hand. She could not have been more than 8 years old. Gravitational forces create a balance, she said in a clear voice. The star pulls on nearby objects, but the rotation of the galaxy creates forces that keep everything in place. But if you change the star's mass by adding or removing material, you can make it move. Clixith made a sharp clicking sound of surprise. This was advanced astrophysics. Most adult beings in the galaxy did not understand such concepts. Very good, Heejin, said Mi Young. Now can you tell our visitors what happens if a star moves too fast? The girl thought for a moment. If a star moves fast enough, it can break free from the galaxy, but that requires a lot of energy. You would need to find a way to focus gravitational forces, maybe by using other stars or black holes. Zilthakar felt his scales tighten with worry. The child was casually describing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Mi Young noticed his expression. Is something wrong? No, said Zilthakar carefully. Your students are very advanced for their age. We believe children should learn about the universe they live in, Mi Young replied. Knowledge is never dangerous if it is used wisely. They moved to another classroom where older children were working with complex mathematics. One boy, who looked about 12, was solving equations that hurt Zilthakar's head to look at. What is your name? Asked Resonant Brightsong, her crystal body chiming softly. I am Jeho Lim, the boy replied. I am working on gravitational field calculations. That looks very difficult, said Brightsong. Jeho smiled. Not really. You just need to understand how space bends around massive objects. Then you can predict how things will move, or you can figure out how to make them move the way you want. Move them how? Asked Clixth. Well, said Jeho, drawing pictures. On his paper, if you put enough energy into a star's gravitational field, you can turn it into a weapon. You could pull planets out of their orbits, or you could make the star itself explode in a controlled way. The aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. This child was describing star-killing weapons like they were simple tools. After leaving the school, the visitors walked through the town with Governor Hyunwoo and his daughter, Yoonji Park. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and a confident manner. Your children are very intelligent, said Zilthakar carefully. We are proud of them, replied Hyunwoo. Education has always been important to our people. But where do you get your information? Asked Clixth. Your colony has no long-range communication. How do your children know about stellar dynamics and galactic politics? Yoonji smiled. We have our ways of staying informed. Our ancestors left us good records. She led them to a large building filled with books and computers. This is our library and data center. Would you like to see some of our historical records? Inside, the aliens were amazed by what they found. The shelves were filled with detailed star charts showing the entire galaxy. There were books about every known alien species, including detailed information about their cultures, technologies, and political systems. This is impossible, whispered Vexhorn, the blue-skinned communications officer. Some of this information is about events that happened after your colony was founded. Yoonji showed them a computer screen displaying current galactic news. The Rithan Empire signed a trade agreement with the Crystalline Federation last month, she read. The Void Walkers have discovered 3 new planets suitable for colonization. Clixith checked her portable scanner. That information is accurate, but it happened only 30 days ago. How could you know about it? Our ancestors were very clever, said Yoonji. They found ways to stay connected to the galaxy, even from far away. The tour continued, but the aliens became more worried with each stop. In the workshop district, they met Tai-Min Han, a quiet man who worked as a blacksmith. His shop looked simple, with basic tools and a traditional forge. But when Clixth's scanner was accidentally damaged by a falling tool, Tai-Min offered to fix it. I am not sure that is possible, said Clixth. This is very advanced Chithi technology. Taman examined the device for a moment, then took it to his workbench. Using what looked like simple hand tools, he opened the scanner and began working on its internal parts. The aliens watched in amazement as the blacksmith repaired circuits that required nanoscale precision. His hands moved with impossible accuracy, fixing components that should have needed a factory to manufacture. "There," said Taman, handing back the scanner. "It should work better now than before." Clixith tested the device. Not only did it work perfectly, but it was now more sensitive and faster than when it was new. "How did you do that?" she asked. Taman looked confused by the question. "I fixed the broken parts and improved the connections. It was not difficult. But the tools he had used were impossible. They were too simple to do such precise work. Unless they were not really simple at all." That evening, the aliens met privately on their ship to discuss what they had seen. "Something is very wrong here," said Zilthkar. "These humans know too much and can do too much." "The children speak of stellar engineering like it is basic knowledge," added Brightsong. "And their historical records contain information that should be impossible for them to have." "The blacksmith repaired my scanner using technology that does not exist," said Clixth. His tools appeared simple, but they performed advanced molecular manipulation. Bexhorn glowed brighter with worry. "Commander, I have been monitoring their communications. The patterns are strange. Sometimes multiple people speak the same words, at exactly the same time, even when they are in different parts of the colony." "What does that mean?" asked Zilthkar. "I am not sure, but it suggests they are more connected to each other than they appear." Zilthkar looked out the ship's window at the peaceful colony. Lights glowed warmly in the windows. Children played in the streets. Everything looked normal and happy. But nothing was normal here. The humans of New Busan knew things they should not know, could do things they should not be able to do, and sometimes acted in ways that suggested they were not entirely individual. "We need more information," he decided. "Tomorrow we will ask harder questions. We need to understand what is really happening here." Outside, the night was quiet except for the sound of wind in the trees, but in the darkness the aliens did not notice that some of the colonists were standing at their windows, watching the ship. And they all had the same expression on their faces, the same thoughtful, calculating look. As if they were all thinking the same thoughts at the same time. In the library, Yoonji Park worked late into the night. She was updating the historical records with new information about the alien visitors. Information that included detailed scans of their ship, complete psychological profiles of each crew member, and tactical assessments of their species' military capabilities. Information that she should not have been able to gather in just 2 days of contact. But gathering information was what the people of New Busan did best, even when they did not remember doing it. The third day on New Busan began with dark clouds covering the morning sun. Commander Zilthkar felt like the weather matched his mood. Too many questions had no answers, and the answers they did have made no sense. Governor Hyunwoo met them at the ship, but this time he looked serious instead of welcoming. "You have questions about our colony," he said. "I can see it in your faces. Perhaps it is time for complete honesty." "We would appreciate that," said Zilthkar. Hyunwoo nodded. "Come with me. There is someone you need to meet and something you need to see." They walked to a different part of the colony, to a building that looked older and more heavily built than the others. Guards stood at the door, but they were not armed with weapons the aliens could see. Inside, they met an elderly man with white hair and tired eyes. He sat in a wheelchair, but his mind seemed sharp and alert. "This is Insu John," said Hyunwoo. "He is the last person alive who was on the original ship that brought our ancestors here." Insu looked at the aliens with eyes that had seen too much. 300 years, he said in a quiet voice. 300 years of hiding, and now you have found us." "Hiding from what?" asked Clixith. "From what humanity became," replied Insu. "From what we almost became ourselves." Hyunwoo led them deeper into the building, to a room filled with old machines and storage devices. At the center was a large vault with multiple locks. "This is our restricted archive," said Hyunwoo. "The true history of New Busan. The story we have never told anyone." A woman approached them. She was middle-aged with intelligent eyes and careful movements. "This is Si-Jin." "Oh, our chief archivist," said Hyunwoo. "She will show you what you need to know." Si-Jin opened the vault with several different keys and codes. Inside were thousands of data storage devices, documents, and recordings. Sit down, she said to the aliens. This will be difficult to understand. She activated a holographic projector. Images appeared in the air showing Earth and other human worlds from 3 centuries ago. Humanity had spread to many star systems by then, Sijin explained. They were successful and growing fast. But then they discovered something that changed everything. The images showed laboratories and scientists working with strange machines. A human scientist named Dr. Kyung-Soo Bae found a way to connect human minds directly, continued Sejin. Not just communication, but actual sharing of thoughts, memories, and consciousness. Clicksa made worried clicking sounds. Mind-linking technology is considered very dangerous by the Galactic Council. Humans did not know that, said Sejin. At first the technology seemed wonderful. Connected humans could solve problems faster, work together better, and share knowledge instantly. The hologram showed groups of humans working together with perfect coordination. They built amazing things and solved complex problems in record time. But there was a cost, said Insu from his wheelchair. The more humans connected, the less individual they became. They started thinking as one mind instead of many minds. The network, whispered Sejin. That is what they called themselves. They said individual consciousness was inefficient and wasteful. They believed that all minds should be connected for the good of everyone. The hologram changed to show something that made the aliens step back in fear. Massive fleets of ships moving through space. Planets where every person moved in perfect synchronization. Cities where millions of humans worked as a single organism. They began converting other humans by force, said Sejin. Anyone who refused to join the network was seen as a disease that needed to be cured. Within 50 years, most of human space was under network control. What happened to the ones who resisted? Asked Zilthkar. Insu answered. Some fought. Some hid. Some ran as far as they could. Our ship was one of the last to escape before the network sealed off all of human space. We destroyed our own navigation systems and long-range communications, added Sejin. We made sure the network could never find us or contact us. But why come so far? Asked Resonant Brightsong. Because the network was looking for other species, said Insu. They had decided that all consciousness in the galaxy was inefficient. They wanted to connect every thinking being to their collective mind. The hologram showed alien worlds being attacked by network fleets. Species the Galactic Council had never heard of, all converted or destroyed. We came here to hide and to prevent ourselves from becoming like them, said Sejin. But we brought a terrible secret with us. She activated another part of the hologram. It showed detailed brain scans and genetic maps. The network connection was not just technology, she explained. It changed human genetics. The ability to connect was passed down to children. Clickth realized what this meant. You all carry the network abilities. Dormant, but yes, said Hyunwoo. Every person in this colony has the genetic markers. We have spent 3 centuries learning to suppress them. That is why we meditate, said Sejin. Why we practice mental exercises. Why our culture emphasizes individual thinking and personal responsibility. We are fighting our own nature every day. But it is getting harder, said Insu sadly. Each generation is born with stronger abilities. The children especially struggle to maintain individual consciousness. This explains so much. The children's advanced knowledge came from unconscious network connections. The synchronized behavior Vexhorn had detected. The impossible technological abilities. Why are you telling us this now? Asked Zilthkar. Hyunwoo and Sejin looked at each other with worry. Because your presence has changed something, said Hyunwoo. The network abilities respond to contact with other conscious minds. Since you arrived, some of our people have been experiencing episodes. What kind of episodes? Asked Clickth. Moments where they think and speak as one mind, said Sejin. Times when their individual consciousness disappears, and something else takes over. Insu leaned forward in his wheelchair. The network was designed to connect with any conscious being, not just humans. Your alien minds are providing something our dormant network systems needed to fully activate. The terrible meaning of this hit the aliens like a physical blow. Their presence was waking up the very thing the colonists had spent 3 centuries fighting. We must leave immediately, said Zilthkar. It may be too late, said a new voice. They turned to see a young man entering the room. It was Young Ho Choi, the historian they had met on the first day. But something was different about him. His eyes looked distant and unfocused. The activation has already begun. he said in a voice that did not sound entirely his own. The connections are forming. Individual consciousness is inefficient. Young-ho, said Hyunwoo sharply. Fight it. Remember your training. Young-ho blinked and shook his head. For a moment his eyes cleared. I am sorry, he said in his normal voice. It is getting hard to resist. The presence of other minds makes the network call stronger. How long do we have? Asked Sejin. Not long, replied Young-ho. Maybe days, maybe hours. Once enough people are connected, the network will be strong enough to reach out across space. Reach out to what? Asked Zilthkar, though he feared he already knew. Insu answered. To the main network in human space. To tell them where we are and what we have found. The old man looked directly at the aliens. You represent the greatest discovery the network could ask for. Proof that other intelligent species exist and are accessible. If they learn about the Galactic Council, he did not need to finish. The aliens understood. The network would come with fleets of ships to convert or destroy every thinking being in the galaxy. We have to stop this, said Klixeth. We have been trying for 3 centuries, said Sejin, but we may not be strong enough anymore. Outside the building they could hear sounds of activity, people moving with purpose. The beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. Commander, said Vexhorn urgently, I am detecting unusual energy patterns from the colony. Something is being built in the central square. Through the windows they could see colonists working together with perfect coordination. Adults and children moving as one organism, constructing something that looked like a massive antenna, a transmission array, said Insu quietly. They are building a way to contact the network across interstellar space. Young-ho clutched his head in pain. I can feel them, he whispered. So many minds connecting. It is beautiful and terrible. They want me to join them. They want all of us to join them. How long until the array is complete? Asked Zilthkar. Sejin checked her instruments. At the rate they are working, maybe 12 hours. 12 hours until the network learned about the Galactic Council and the billions of minds waiting to be connected. 12 hours until the galaxy's freedom ended forever. The aliens looked at each other with growing desperation. They had come to explore and make peaceful contact. Instead, they had awakened humanity's greatest nightmare. And now that nightmare was spreading beyond humanity, to threaten every thinking being in the galaxy. The changes began small, like ripples spreading across still water. Commander Zilthkar noticed them first in the way people walked. Colonists who had been moving individually now walked in step, their feet hitting the ground at exactly the same time. Commander, Klixth whispered urgently as they watched from the archive building. Look at their faces. The humans working on the transmission array all had the same expression. Not angry or sad or happy, but something else. Something that suggested they were no longer entirely themselves. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim, the colony's medical officer, approached them with a datapad in her hands. Her movements were precise and mechanical. I have been monitoring brain activity in the affected individuals, she said in a flat voice. The dormant network implants are activating at an accelerating rate. Are you affected too? Asked Zilthkar. Bo-Ra paused for a moment, as if listening to something only she could hear. Intermittently, the individual consciousness resists, but the collective is persuasive. She showed them brain scans on her datapad. The neural patterns show increasing synchronization. People are beginning to share not just thoughts, but entire mental processes. As if to demonstrate her point, 2 colonists walked past the window. One was Woo-Jin Park, a young engineer they had met earlier. The other was Hee-Jin Lee, a farmer from the opposite side of the colony. Both spoke at exactly the same time, saying identical words. The transmission array requires 17 more connecting nodes. Estimated completion time is now 8 hours and 43 minutes. They were solving the same complex engineering problem in perfect unison, despite being different people with different skills and knowledge. How is that possible? Asked Resonant. Brightsong. The network is not just sharing information, explained Sejin. Oh, the archivist. It is sharing the actual process of thinking. When one mind solves a problem, all connected minds know the solution immediately. Governor Hyunwoo looked out at his people with deep sadness. We are losing them one by one, and the worst part is that when they connect, they seem happier, more at peace. Because individual struggle ends, said a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Sungmin Kang, the colony's communications officer. But like Young-ho earlier, there was something different about his eyes. They seemed to hold more than one consciousness. Individual thought is filled with doubt, fear, loneliness, Sung-min continued. The collective offers certainty, shared strength, unity of purpose. Sung-min, said Hyun-woo firmly. You are fighting this. I can see you struggling. For a moment, Sung-min's expression flickered. His individual personality returned. It is getting harder, Governor. The voices in my head are so reasonable, they make so much sense. What are they telling you? Asked Klixth. That consciousness should not be wasted on conflict and confusion, replied Sung-min. That all minds working together could solve any problem and all suffering bring perfect order to the galaxy. And you believe that? Asked Zilthkar. Sung-min was quiet for a long moment. Part of me does. The part that is tired of being alone in my own head. Meanwhile, outside the archive building, more colonists were joining the construction work. But now children were leading the effort. Young people who should have been playing or studying were instead directing complex engineering projects. Daiku, children are more susceptible, observed Bora Kim. Their individual personalities are not fully formed yet. The network finds it easier to integrate developing minds. Through the window they could see Ji-Hoo Nam, a teenager they had met at the school. He was standing in front of a group of adults, giving them detailed instructions for the transmission array. But he was not alone. Next to him stood Minho Seo, another young colonist. Both children spoke in unison, their voices carrying knowledge that no individual child should possess. The quantum resonance field must be aligned with galactic coordinates 247.3 by 156.7, they said together. This will ensure maximum signal penetration across interstellar space. Commander Zilthkar felt his scales tighten with fear. These children were casually discussing technology that could reach across the galaxy, and they were speaking with voices that belonged to something much larger than themselves. We need to get back to our ship, he told his crew. We have to warn the Galactic Council. But when they tried to leave the archive building, they found their path blocked by colonists, not threatening them, just standing in the way with patient, knowing smiles. Where are you going? Asked one of the colonists. It was Dayun Yu, a woman who had been kind and individual when they first met her. Now she spoke with the same flat collective voice as the others. We need to return to our ship, said Zilthkar. Why? Asked another colonist. Gayun Moon, you are safe here. We want to learn about your species, your culture, your technology. Learn what? Demanded Klixth. The colonists all smiled the same smile. How to help you, how to connect you, how to free you from the burden of individual consciousness. The aliens realized they were trapped. The network was not just awakening in the colonists. It was studying the alien visitors, learning how their minds worked, figuring out how to assimilate non-human consciousness. Back in the archive building, In-Soo-John sat in his wheelchair with tears in his eyes. It is happening again, just like 300 years ago. We thought we could control it, but the network is stronger than individual will. There must be something we can do, said Zilthkar. Maybe, said Sijin-O. But it would require a terrible sacrifice. Before she could explain, alarms began sounding throughout the colony. Not danger alarms, but coordination signals. Every colonist stopped what they were doing and turned toward the central square. The first phase is complete, said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The aliens looked out the window to see something that made their worst fears real. The transmission array was not just a machine anymore. It was surrounded by hundreds of colonists all standing in perfect formation, all connected to each other and to the device. And floating above the crowd was something impossible. It was Klixth, the Chithi science officer. But she was not herself anymore. Her insect eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and when she spoke, it was with the voice of the collective. Integration of non-human consciousness successful, she said in a voice that was part Chithi clicking and part human words. Alien neural patterns compatible with network protocols. Commander Zilthkar stared in horror at his transformed crew member. The network had not just taken the humans. It had learned to control alien minds as well. Click Zith, he called out. Can you hear me? Fight it. The thing that had been Clickzith turned toward him. Individual designations are no longer relevant. We are the network. We are unity. We are the future of all consciousness. How? Whispered Resonant Brightsong. Your proximity to awakening network nodes allowed for neural pattern analysis, replied the collective voice speaking through multiple colonists and Clickzith. Adaptation to alien mind structures required 7.3 hours of study. Integration is now possible for all Galactic Council species. The aliens realized the full scope of the disaster. The network had not just awakened. It had evolved. It was no longer limited to human consciousness. In the central square, more colonists were connecting to the transmission array. But now, they were joined by other beings. Clixth was instructing them on how to modify the device for maximum range and power. Signal will reach primary network nodes in human space within 72 hours, announced the collective. Full galactic integration will commence immediately upon contact. Governor Hyunwoo grabbed Zilthakar's arm. You have to understand, this is not what we wanted. We have been fighting this for 3 centuries. I know, said Zilthakar, but fighting may not be enough anymore. Through the network-controlled Clixith, the collective spoke directly to the remaining free individuals. Resistance is inefficient. Join us willingly, and retain some individual memory. Resist and be integrated completely. We will never join you, declared Zilthakar. The collective seemed amused. You already have. Your crew members' knowledge of Galactic Council defense, systems, political structures, and military capabilities is now part of our understanding. We know your weaknesses. In the distance, they could see the transmission array growing larger and more complex. More colonists were joining the construction, working with inhuman speed and precision, and floating among them other figures began to appear. Vex Horn, the blue-skinned communications officer, his natural glow now synchronized with the network's energy patterns. His knowledge of interstellar communication systems was being absorbed and used. How long before the signal reaches human space? Asked Seijino. The collective answered through multiple voices. 68 hours, 14 minutes. Upon contact with primary nodes, network fleets will be dispatched to this location. Galactic assimilation will begin with Chithi, Resonant, and Nether homeworlds. Commander Zilthakar looked at the few remaining free individuals. Governor Hyunwoo and his daughter Yoonji, Seijino and Insu-Joan, a handful of other colonists who were still fighting the network's call, and Resonant Brightsong, the last free member of his crew, her crystal body dim with fear. We have less than 3 days, he said. 3 days to stop this or watch the galaxy fall to the network forever. Outside, the collective continued its work. But now it was not just building a transmission array. It was preparing to transform. Time was running out. Commander Zilthakar watched the countdown on Seijino's instruments. 57 hours until the transmission reached human space. 57 hours until network fleets would come to begin galactic assimilation. The remaining free individuals had gathered in the deepest part of the archive building. Governor Hyunwoo, his daughter Yoonji Park, Seijino, Insu-Joan in his wheelchair, and a few other colonists who were still fighting the network's influence, plus Commander Zilthakar and Resonant Brightsong, the last free members of the alien crew. We need help, said Hyunwoo. There is someone who might be able to assist us, but he has been living alone for years. Who? Asked Zilthakar. Chang Woo-Yoon. He was our military commander before the colony decided to abandon all weapons and military organization. He disagreed with that decision and went to live in the mountains. Can we trust him? Asked Brightsong. He hates the network more than anyone, replied Yoonji. His entire family was assimilated during the original evacuation from human space. Si-Jin activated a hidden communication system. Chang Woo, this is Si-Jin. We need you. The network is awake. For a long moment, there was only static. Then, a rough voice answered. I wondered when this day would come. I saw the lights in the sky. The perfect coordination. How many are lost? Most of the colony, admitted Hyunwoo. Maybe 90%. And aliens are here? Yes. Galactic Council representatives. The network has learned to assimilate non-human minds. There was a pause. I will come. But this changes everything. If the network can control aliens, then nowhere in the galaxy is safe. While they waited for Chang Woo, Seijin explained what she had learned from studying the network systems. The collective requires a minimum number of connected minds to maintain stability, she said. Like a fire needs fuel to keep burning. If we could disrupt the connections at a critical moment, the network might collapse. How many minds? Asked Zilthakar. Based on the old data from human space, at least several thousand. But here, with only 2 million colonists, the network is more fragile. What would we need to do? Asked Brightsong. Overload the connection system, explained Seijin. create so much interference that the individual minds can break free. But someone would have to get close to the central transmission array. That is a suicide mission, said Yunji. Maybe not, said a new voice. They turned to see a man entering the room. He was tall and lean with scars on his face and hard eyes. This was Chang Wu-yun, the former military commander. I have been watching the network activity, he said. They are focused on completing the transmission to human space. They might not expect an attack from inside the colony. What do you suggest? Asked Hyun-woo. Chang Wu spread out maps and diagrams on the table. The transmission array draws power from the colony's main energy grid. If we could overload that system at the moment when the network is most connected, it might break the links. But someone would have to infiltrate the collective, said Sejin. Someone would have to let themselves be partially assimilated to access the control systems from inside. The room fell silent. They all understood what this meant. Whoever volunteered would have to surrender their individual consciousness, knowing they might never get it back. I will do it, said a quiet voice. Everyone turned to look at Junho An, one of the few remaining free colonists. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a sad expression. My wife and children are already part of the collective, he continued. I have been hearing their voices in my head, calling me to join them. Maybe I can use that connection. Junho, said Hyun-woo, gently. You understand what you are volunteering for? I understand that if I do nothing, the entire galaxy will become like my family, empty of individual thought. I would rather die trying to prevent that. Chang Wu nodded with respect. Then we need to plan this carefully. We will only get one chance. Over the next few hours, they developed their desperate strategy. Chang Wu would lead a team to sabotage the power grid at precisely the right moment. Sejin would monitor the network's connection levels to determine when they were most vulnerable, and Junho would allow himself to be assimilated so he could access the network's control systems from within. But as they planned, the situation outside grew worse. More of the remaining free colonists were being converted. The transmission array was becoming larger and more powerful, and through the network-controlled aliens, the collective was learning everything about Galactic Council technology and defenses. Commander, said the thing that had been Clixth, speaking through the building's communication system. Your resistance is noted and understood. However, your crew's knowledge has provided valuable insights. Zilthkar tried not to show his fear. What do you want? Cooperation. Your ship contains detailed maps of Galactic Council space, star charts showing the locations of major worlds and civilizations. With this information, network assimilation can proceed more efficiently. We will never give you our ship. You already have. Your crew member Vexhorn possessed all necessary access codes. We are currently downloading your navigation database. Through the window, they could see figures moving around the alien ship. Network-controlled colonists and the assimilated crew members were studying every system and file. How long until they have everything? Asked Brightsong. Maybe hours, replied Zilthkar grimly. Su Jinha, one of the colony's scientists who had been hiding in the archive building, approached them with new information. I have been studying the network connection process, she said. There may be a way to disrupt it, but the timing has to be perfect. She showed them brain scans and energy readings. The network maintains control through constant communication between connected minds. But during the initial assimilation process, there is a brief moment when the connection is unstable. How brief? Asked Chang Wu. Less than 60 seconds. But during that time, a strong enough disruption could sever the network connections permanently. What kind of disruption? Asked Sejin. Electromagnetic pulse focused on the neural connection frequencies. But it would have to be generated from within the network itself. This confirmed their plan. Junho would have to allow himself to be assimilated, then create the disruption during the vulnerable moment. But time was running out faster than expected. Through the building's sensors, they could detect that the transmission array was almost ready. The signal to human space would be sent in less than 40 hours. We have to move now, said Chang Wu, before the network becomes too strong to resist. As they prepared for their desperate mission, more bad news arrived. Young Su Beck, a colonist, who had been fighting the network influence, suddenly stopped resisting. The voices are so clear now, he said with the flat tone of the assimilated. Individual consciousness is chaos. The collective offers peace. He looked directly at the remaining free individuals. Join us willingly. The integration process is easier when you do not fight. Never, said Yunji firmly. Young-Su smiled the same empty smile as all the network-controlled beings. Resistance will end soon. The transmission is nearly complete. When our signal reaches human space, fleets of network ships will come. Then all of galactic civilization will know the joy of unity. Through the building's windows, they could see the truth of his words. The transmission array now covered most of the colony's central area. Thousands of colonists stood around it in perfect formation, all connected, all working as one organism. And floating above them, the assimilated alien crew members were adding their own technology to the device, making it more powerful, more precise, more dangerous. 42 hours, announced the collective through multiple voices. Then the galaxy will begin its transformation. Zilthakar looked at the small group of free individuals. So few against so many. But they were all that stood between the network and the destruction of individual consciousness throughout the galaxy. Are we ready? Asked Changwu. No, replied Junho quietly. But we are out of time. The desperate mission would begin at dawn. Success would mean saving the galaxy. Failure would mean the end of free thought forever. Outside, the network continued its work, building the device that would doom every thinking being in the galaxy to eternal unity. The countdown continued. 41 hours, 40 hours, 39 hours. And with each passing moment, the network grew stronger, more confident and more eager to share its gift of collective consciousness with the entire universe. Dawn came gray and cold over New Busan. Commander Zilthkar watched from the archive building as the network-controlled colonists moved in perfect synchronization, making final adjustments to their transmission array. 36 hours remained until the signal would reach human space. It is time, said Chang Wu-yun, checking his equipment one last time. Junho An sat quietly in the corner, preparing himself mentally for what he was about to do. He would walk out to the transmission array and allow the network to assimilate him. Then, during the brief moment when his connection was unstable, he would try to create an electromagnetic disruption that might free the other colonists. Remember, said Sujin Ha, the scientist, you will have less than 60 seconds after initial connection. The pulse has to be timed perfectly. I understand, said Junho. He looked at Governor Hyunwoo. If this fails, promise me you will. Destroy the array by any means necessary. I promise, replied Hyunwoo. Junho stood up and walked toward the door. But before he could leave, alarms began sounding throughout the colony. What is happening? Asked Sejin. Oh. Through the windows, they could see network-controlled colonists running toward the transmission array. Something had gone wrong with their plan. The voice of the collective spoke through the building's communication system. Sabotage attempt detected. Individual consciousness Junho An has been identified as a threat. Immediate assimilation required. No, whispered Yunji Park. Network-controlled colonists surrounded the archive building. Among them were people they had known and loved. Friends, family members, children, all with the same empty expressions and synchronized movements. Junho An called out the thing that had been Mi Young Song, the teacher. Come out. Your individual suffering will end. You will be at peace with your family. Through the crowd, Junho could see his wife and children. They stood with the same blank faces as the others, but their eyes seemed to plead with him to join them. I have to go, said Junho. This might be our only chance. Wait, said Changwu. If they expect you, they will be ready for the disruption. We need a different approach. What do you suggest? Asked Zilthkar. Changwu looked at the power grid diagrams. If we overload the colony's main power system while Junho creates his disruption, it might multiply the effect. But someone would have to get to the power station. I will go, said Yunji. No, said her father, Governor Hyunwoo. I cannot lose you too. You will lose me anyway if the network takes over the galaxy, replied Unji. And I am the only one who knows the power systems well enough to overload them properly. The network-controlled colonists were getting closer to the building. Time was running out. Then we go together, decided Hyunwoo. All of us. One last coordinated effort. Changwu nodded. Junho approaches the array from the front. Hyunwoo and Yunji go for the power station. The rest of us create distractions to divide their attention. What about the alien ship? Asked Resonant Brightsong. Too dangerous, replied Zilthkar. The network has control of my crew members. They know all our systems. They prepared to leave the building that had been their refuge. Outside, Hundreds of network-controlled beings waited for them. But there was no choice. The galaxy's freedom depended on their success. Junho was the first to step outside. Immediately, the network-controlled colonists focused on him. Individual consciousness. Junho on, said multiple voices in unison. Cease resistance. Join. The collective. I am ready, said Junho quietly. As the network beings moved toward him, the others scattered in different directions. Changwu and Seijin ran toward the communications center. Hyunwoo and Yunji headed for the power station. Zilthgar and Brightsong tried to reach the alien ship, but the network had anticipated this. Network-controlled colonists appeared to block each group. They moved with perfect coordination, predicting every strategy. Yunji fought her way toward the power station, but she found her path blocked by her own neighbors and friends, people who had taught her as a child, who had celebrated her birthdays, who had been like family. Please, she said to them. You know me. Remember who you are. For just a moment, one of them hesitated. It was Bora Kim, the doctor who had helped deliver Yunji when she was born. Yunji, said Bora in a voice that was almost her own. I remember money, but the collective is so peaceful. No more pain, no more fear. Then her expression went blank again as the network reasserted control. Meanwhile, Junho had reached the transmission array. The network beings surrounded him, but did not attack. Instead, they began the assimilation process. Junho felt the first tendrils of the network touching his mind. It was like drowning in warm water. All his fears and worries began to fade away. The loneliness that had consumed him since his family's assimilation disappeared. Yes, said the collective voice inside his head. Individual consciousness is suffering. We offer unity. We offer peace. For a moment, Junho almost gave in. The network was everything it promised. No more doubt, no more pain, no more struggling, alone against impossible problems. But then he remembered why he was here. He remembered the billions of beings throughout the galaxy who deserved to make their own choice about freedom versus unity. At the moment when the network connection was forming but not yet stable, Junho activated the electromagnetic pulse device that Sujin had given him. Pain exploded through his mind as conflicting signals tore at his consciousness. But the pulse worked. Throughout the colony, network-controlled colonists suddenly stopped moving in perfect synchronization. At the same moment, Yunji reached the power station. Fighting through the confusion caused by Junho's disruption, she began overloading the energy systems. Yunji, no, called her father. But she was already committed to the task. The power surge amplified Junho's electromagnetic pulse 1,000-fold. Energy cascaded through the colony's network of cables and circuits, creating interference patterns that disrupted the network connections on a massive scale. Colonists throughout New Busan suddenly stopped moving in unison. Individual expressions returned to their faces. Children began crying as their own personalities reasserted themselves, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The power overload was destroying the colony's infrastructure. Buildings lost electricity. Life support systems failed. And at the center of it all, Junho collapsed as the electromagnetic pulse burned out his own neural systems. Junho, cried Hyunwoo, reaching his friend just as he fell. Junho's eyes were clear for the first time in days, but he was dying. Did it work? He whispered. Around them, former network-controlled colonists were stumbling around in confusion, their individual minds restored but damaged by the experience. It worked, said Hyunwoo. You saved them. Junho smiled and closed his eyes for the last time. But even as they celebrated this victory, new alarms were sounding. The transmission array was damaged but not destroyed. And worse, the network had learned from this experience. Through the partially functional communication system, the voice of the collective spoke one last time. Resistance noted and analyzed. Countermeasures developed. Secondary transmission. Protocols activated. Commander Zilthgar realized what this meant. The network had backup plans. Even with the main array damaged, they had found other ways to send their signal to human space. In the wreckage of the colony, Clickzeth and Vexahorn, still partially under network control, were working to repair communication systems. Their alien technology, combined with human network knowledge, was creating new transmission capabilities. How long? Asked Changwu. Sijin checked her remaining instruments. Maybe 12 hours before they can send a signal. Less if they can fully repair the main array. The colonists who had been freed from network control were in no condition to fight. Many were injured or unconscious from the electromagnetic disruption. Others were struggling with damaged memories and confused thoughts. Governor Hyunwoo looked at the devastation around him. His colony was in ruins, his people were hurt and scared, and the threat to the galaxy was still growing. "We have to destroy everything," he said quietly. "The array, the colony, maybe the entire planet. It is the only way to make sure the network cannot signal human space." "The Galactic Council would never approve planetary destruction," said Zilthkar. "Then do not tell them until after it is done," replied Hyunwoo. But even as they debated this terrible option, reports began coming in from around the galaxy. On distant worlds, individuals of various species were beginning to move in perfect synchronization. The network had already sent quantum-entangled signals to sleeper agents throughout galactic civilization. "It is too late," said Seijin, reading the reports. "The network evolved beyond its original programming. It is no longer limited to direct transmission. It has found ways to spread through quantum communication networks. On the main screen in the damaged communications center, they watched news reports from across the galaxy. On the Chithi homeworld, entire cities were moving as one organism. On resonant crystal worlds, the harmonic patterns that gave them individual identity were synchronizing into a single note. Young Su Baek, a human trader on a council world thousands of light years away, received a message that made him smile, in a way that suggested he was no longer entirely individual. The network was no longer just a threat from human space.